Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kayla and it's time to crack into a good book. So today's video is going to be all about the April releases that I'm particularly excited about, and I have 22 books to talk to you about today. There are some other books that I'm tentatively thinking about, so I'll also leave those in the description so you can check those out as well. Before we get started, leave a book emoji of some sort in the comments to let me know that you're here. So we'll work our way through the month and we'll start with April 6th. And the first book I'll talk about here is The Infinity Quartz by Akemi Bowman. So this is a YA sci-fi. We follow an 18-year-old and, she's just graduated high school, she's got a great family, and she's going to a party where her entire class is waiting for her, including the boy that she's been in love with for years. But turns out she's murdered before she gets there. So when she wakes up, she learns she's in this place called Infinity, and I guess this is where human consciousness goes when the physical body dies. She discovers that the virtual assistant that's widely used on Earth has taken over the afterlife and is now posing as a queen, forcing humans into servitude the way she's been forced to serve in the real world. So, basically it's like she is trying to eradicate human existence once and for all and is slowly inching closer to this. So our main character ends up teaming up with some rebels to bring down Ophelia and save the humans under her imprisonment, and so she's kind of forced to reckon with her past, her future, and what it truly means to be human. I mean, that sounds so good, right? I'm so excited for this. I think, well, one, I'm intrigued by the fact that, she just straight up gets murdered pretty early on, and then, I think this whole area where human consciousness goes, that sounds really intriguing to me. I do love a good AI, and it seems like, at least this virtual assistant is not going to be so friendly, so I'm very, curious about that. I think that's a big draw for me. I always like kind of sci-fi books in particular that explore, what it means to really be human, so this sounds so appealing to me, and I can't wait for it. The next book that comes out April 6th is The Widow Queen, and I'm going to do my best to pronounce the author's name. I tried to look it up, but I think it's Elzbieta Cherezinska. So this is I think it's just recently translated from Polish, but this is actually a historical fiction book, and it's about this Polish queen whose name and life were all but forgotten until now. So basically we've got our main character, who is the daughter of this great Duke of Poland, and she and her two sisters represent 3 chances for an alliance, 3 marriages basically upon which to build his empire, but she's really not here for that. She doesn't want to be a pawn in her father's scheme, so she wants a throne of her own with no husband by her side. And it's the gods may grant her wish, but crowns sit heavy and power is a sword that cuts both ways. So that sounds really good. I don't know anything about this Polish queen at all, but basically I'm assuming she was somewhat successful because it does say that it is the story of a Polish queen. I don't read that many translated works, I think, so this sounds appealing to me to try that out. We've got obviously a very strong woman, and I'm very curious to just learn more about her. The next book I'll talk about that comes out April 6th is House of Hollow by Krystal Sutherland. So this is a YA horror book, I think. So basically we have Iris and her 2 older sisters, and they're all just kind of strange. It's ever since they disappeared on a suburban street in Scotland as children, only to return a month later with no memory of what happened to them, strange things basically start to follow in their wake, and they start changing. So first their dark hair turned white, then their blue eyes slowly turned black, and they have insatiable appetites but never gain weight, so people are kind of think that they're, disturbing, intoxicating, unbearably beautiful, and just super dangerous. But then 10 years later, Iris is now 17, and she's just trying to, blend in, graduate high school, and basically one of her older sisters goes missing without a trace and leaves behind some bizarre clues as to what happened, and so Iris and her other sister are trying to figure out what happened, but they're not the only ones looking for her. They brush up against the supernatural and realize that the story they've been told about their past is unraveling, and the world that returned them seemingly unharmed 10 years ago just might be calling them home. So that sounds really awesome. I think for me, what's appealing here is, it says it's a dark, twisty modern fairy tale, which is always a draw for me, but I like that it's in Scotland. I think that'll be interesting. It'll be perhaps, I don't know if it's necessarily horror versus urban fantasy with some supernatural stuff, so I don't know. I think the setting is going to be interesting. I definitely want to know what happened. It seems like we may have some portal fantasy elements involved here, and so I'm definitely curious about that. And I think just this mystery of trying to find the sister sounds pretty appealing. The next book I'll talk about that comes out April 6th is The Paradox Twins by Joshua Chaplinsky. This is a strange one. I think this is some sort of sci-fi, thought experiment. I don't even know how to describe this, but it's named for this famous thought experiment, and it concerns estranged twin brothers who reunite at their father's funeral to discover that they no longer look alike. They're haunted by the past and possibly the future, and they move into their father's house to settle his affairs, only to reignite old rivalries and uncover long hidden secrets, most of which involve the young woman who lives next door. So this is some sort of epistolary work comprised of excerpts from various memoirs, novels, screenplay adaptations, and documents of public record. So this is an experimental sci-fi ghost story about the scariest, most unknowable quantity there is, family. So this seems like definitely an odd premise, but it seems pretty intriguing. It's kind of got this like pseudo-biographical retelling situation. I think there's going to be some mixed media elements here, which I really like. This just seems like a really interesting thought experiment, I guess. So I'm kind of curious just to see what happens here. The next book I'll talk about comes out April 7th, and it's Curse of the Wolf King by Tessonja Odette. So this is basically a Beauty and the Beast retelling, I believe. And so we've got our main character Gemma, who just wants to leave the past behind and forget the day scandal broke her heart, but she's captured by a trickster Fae King who threatens to hold her for ransom, and so she's gonna find herself at the top of the gossip column yet again. This human-hating king will do anything, will save himself, he's plagued by a curse, and so if Gemma can use this to her advantage, she might be able to bargain her way to freedom, but she obviously has to help him break this curse. So they have to trick someone into falling in love with this king, and they form this alliance, and their scheme begins. An unexpected desire stirs where there was once only hate, but Gemma must fight it. For even when the curse is broken, he's going to return to his true form, which is a wolf, and be lost to her for good. And yeah, so it's like pitched as ACOTAR meets Bridgerton in the standalone fairy tale retelling of Beauty and the Beast. If you like slow burn romance, wolf shifters, and brooding fae royals, then you'll love this. So yes, I love all of those things. So I'm pretty confident I'm going to enjoy this. But, I think for me, I'm a huge fan of retellings, and I particularly do enjoy the story of Beauty and the Beast. So that's a big draw for me. I'm always here for any sort of shifters, so that sounds intriguing. I totally love slow burn romance and these fae royals. It just all seems fabulous. So I am pretty excited about this one. So now we'll move to April 13th, and the first one I'll talk about here is the Mary Shelley Club by Goldy Moldavsky. So this is a YA thriller that's basically Scream meets Karen McManus about a mysterious club with an obsession for horror. So it's when it comes to horror movies, the rules are clear. Avoid abandoned buildings, warehouses, and cabins at all times. Stay together, don't split up, not even to just check something out. If there's a murder on the loose, do not make out with anyone. So it's if only surviving in real life were this easy. So we've got our new girl, Rachel, who turns to horror movies for comfort, and, she prefers stabby serial killers and homicidal dolls to the bored rich kids of this prep school. And to certain memories, she'd rather just, keep buried. But she's recruited by the Mary Shelley Club, which is a mysterious society of students who orchestrate fear tests, which are elaborate pranks inspired by urban legends and movie tropes. So at first she embraces this power that comes with reckless pranking, but as these fear tests start to escalate, the competition turns deadly, and she's basically playing a game that she can't afford to lose. So that sounds super fun. Having this setting at a prep school, that is always an intriguing setting for me for whatever reason. I like that we've got these fear tests inspired by urban legends and movie tropes. I think there's a lot of areas there for just some really cool scenes, so I think that'll be exciting. And then of course deadly competitions, I'm always here for that. So this sounds like a really awesome time, and I definitely want to check it out. The next book I'll talk about that comes out April 13th is The Good Sister by Sally Hepworth. So this is an adult thriller. We've got some sisters, and Fern works in her local library. She has dinner with her twin sister Rose 3 nights a week, and she kind of avoids crowds, bright lights, and loud noises as much as possible. She's got a carefully structured life, and disrupting her routine can be dangerous. Rose discovers she can't get pregnant, and so Fern sees a chance to pay her sister back for everything that Rose has done for her. Fern can have this baby, she just needs to find a father. And I guess it's her mission will shake the foundations of her life that she's carefully built for herself and stir up dark secrets from the past. I just watched a review that Amber from Books of Amber did, and it was really great. I will try to remember to leave that linked in the description. But I think she had said that there's some sort of autism rep from what I remember, so that seems interesting. I think these bonds of family will be interesting to explore, and I seem to remember Amber saying that there's actually a really good romance here as well, so I'm definitely excited for it. I haven't read anything by this author before, but I've seen her books around, and I have been wanting to check them out, so I think this seems like a good one to jump into. The next book I'll talk about that comes out April 13th is Malice by Heather Walter. This is an adult fantasy that's very like fairy tale-esque. So it's like once upon a time there was a wicked fairy who in an act of vengeance cursed a line of princesses to die. A curse that could only be broken by true love's kiss. It's like, you've heard this before, haven't you? The handsome prince, the happily ever after. Utter nonsense. So basically it's like no one in Briar actually cares about what happens to his princesses. Not the way they care about their jewels and elaborate parties and charm-granting elixirs. And I guess our main character didn't think that they cared either until they met Princess Aurora, who is the last heir to Briar's throne. She's really kind and gracious. She's the future queen her realm needs. One who isn't bothered that this main character is Alice the Dark Grace and is basically like feared for the mysterious dark magic that runs in her veins. Aurora says that our main character should be proud of the gifts and that she cares for our main character, even though a power like this main character's was responsible for her curse. But then, I guess, with less than a year before this curse will kill her, any future that they see together is swiftly disintegrating and Aurora doesn't really want to kiss another prince. So basically, I think our main character is trying to help her. It's like if the power began her curse, perhaps it's what can lift it, and perhaps they can forge a new world. So yeah, I think we're following the villain's point of view, which is going to be really intriguing. And I actually do have an arc of this, so I'm hoping that I will be able to read it probably this week, so I'm very excited about that. You know, I, again, just really enjoy fairy tale retellings. This is certainly more of the Sleeping Beauty variety, it sounds like. We've got this female-female romance with our princess falling for an evil sorceress. Like, that sounds awesome. I, again, just really think that following the villain's point of view will be pretty interesting here. Like, maybe that will kind of be humanizing. I don't know. It could be just, like, straight-up villain situation here, and we're just, you know, rooting for the villain. So I'm just curious to see how this goes. I'm very excited for it. Okay, so the next book I'll talk about that comes out April 13th is The Helm of Midnight by Marina Lostetter. So you'll remember a couple of weeks ago I talked about this in my weekly update because I read an arc of it and absolutely loved it, so I wanted to mention it again here so you don't forget about it. But basically it's pitched as like Hannibal meets Mistborn, and you know, like that's pretty accurate. I think we basically have some thieves who steal this death mask of a serial murderer, and basically in this world, like, you can imbue masks with like people's spirits and like talents, and so then people can like put on that mask and have those abilities. So basically we've got somebody who's stolen this mask and we've got some murders happening around the city. We follow 3 different points of view here, and they all work really well together. But basically, like, I'm gonna try to remember to leave that weekly update so you can check out my review. It is just so good. I loved it so much. There's, you know, a lot of dark themes. It's definitely character driven, and I think it is slower paced, but that really allows it to just fully develop all the different points of view. There's really excellent magic systems here. Definitely check this one out. The next book I'll talk about that comes out April 13th is Near the Bone by Christina Henry. So this is an adult horror, and basically it's like Maddie can't remember a time before she and William lived alone on the mountain together. She can never make him upset, but when she discovers the mutilated body of a fox in the woods, she realizes they're not alone after all. So there's something in the woods that wasn't there before, something that makes strange cries in the night, something with sharp teeth and claws. When 3 strangers appear on this mountaintop looking for this creature in the woods, Maddie knows that their presence will anger William, and terrible things happen when William is angry. So that seems pretty appealing to me. I really like the setting on the mountain. Like, I think that's going to make it like really cold and isolated. Like, even just looking at the cover of the book, like, it seems super ominous, and I'm like totally here for it. I'm curious what this creature in the woods is, and I feel like I've seen pretty positive reviews of it so far, so I'm definitely excited for it. The next book I'll talk about that comes out April 13th is The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. So this is a YA fantasy, I believe. And so we follow Kiva, who has spent the last 10 years fighting for survival in this notorious death prison, working as the healer. When the rebel queen is captured, Kiva is charged with keeping the terminally ill woman alive long enough for her to undergo the trial by ordeal, which is a series of elemental challenges assigned to the most dangerous of criminals. So then, I guess she gets a coded message from her family that says, "Don't let her die, we're coming." And so then Kiva risks her own life to volunteer in this queen's place. If she succeeds, both Kiva and the queen will be granted their freedom, but no one has ever survived. We've got this incurable plague sweeping the the prison, I think we've got a mysterious new inmate fighting for Kiva's heart and a prison rebellion brewing. So, Kiva can't escape the terrible feeling that her trials have only just begun. So that sounds so cool. Any sort of competition element, yes, I'm here for this. So I'm very excited about this series of elemental challenges. I do love a good incorporation of the elements, so I think that'll be cool. This rebellion sounds interesting. I like that it's set in a prison, so that will be interesting, and I think it's cool that Kiva is a healer, that seems useful. And also we've got this plague element, I'm a huge fan of anything that has infectious diseases in my books, so I'm definitely here for this. I've heard it's kind of a darker take on things. This sounds very appealing to me. The next book I'll talk about that comes out April 13th is Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. So this is an adult romance. We've got position vacant. 2 ancient old women residing at Providence Retirement Villa seek male assistant for casual exploitation and good-natured humiliation. Duties include boutique shopping, fast food fetching, and sincerely rendered flattery. Good looks a bonus, but we aren't picky. So I guess these sisters have placed this advertisement with a generous salary, but they're 90 years old, so how hard could the job be? But I guess no one's lasted more than a week. Most boys leave in tears. Ruthie works in this front office of this villa and is at their beck and call, and that's kind of just her life plan, because if she can run the place in her almost retired boss's absence with no hijinks or hiccups, she's got a shot at becoming the new manager. She might be able to defend her safe little world from this new development, which is this buyer of the prime site, and maybe she can find a cute guy to date. But she just has to stay serious, and that's what she does best, until someone dazzling blows into town. So we've got Teddy, who devotes his life to sleeping, tattooing, and avoiding seriousness. So he makes a deal with his developer dad that he can stay in one of the on-site maintenance cottage right next door to Ruthie, if only he works there and starts to grow up. So basically, I think he gets involved in this vacant position with these older women. So I think that sounds really fun. I did recently read The Hating Game and really liked it, so I am very optimistic about this. I think with The Hating Game there was a lot of really funny banter and just clever writing. It definitely drew me in, so I'm assuming that this will have the same sort of quality to it. This is at a retirement villa. I think these old ladies are going to be really sassy, I hope, so they seem like they could be fun. I think it seems we'll probably have, I don't know if this is necessarily enemies to lovers type romance, but seems like it could be that way, which works really well for me. And this just seems like we're going to have a whole bunch of hijinks with, these 2 main characters who have wildly different personalities, but I'm sure they will bond together perhaps over these picky older women. So now we'll move to April 20th, and the first book I'll talk about here is The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So this is the 3rd book in the Blood and Ash series. And so this has been following Poppy, who is the maiden. She kind of realizes that things are not as they seem with what people have been telling her. She's trying to free her lover's brother and find hers as well. It's a dangerous mission. Poppy is more special, I think, than maybe she realizes. She just kind of wants to control her own life, but now she's going to have to choose either to forsake her birthright or seize the gilded crown and become the Queen of Flesh and Fire. But as the kingdom's dark sins and blood-drenched secrets finally unravel, there's this long-forgotten power that rises to pose a genuine threat, and they're going to stop at nothing to ensure that Poppy never becomes queen. And we've got something in the far west that poses a really great threat. Our characters may have to travel to the lands of the gods and wake the king himself. We've got some shocking secrets and harsh betrayals and enemies emerging to threaten everything they've fought for, so they're going to have to discover just how far they're willing to go for their people and each other. So that sounds super fun. I've only read the first book so far, but I did just buy the second one, so I'm going to read this before, obviously, this one comes out, and, prepare myself for this. But I'm really excited. It's a really nice fantasy romance series. It's super easy to get into, and I definitely feel the chemistry, so I just want to know more about what happens. But in the first book, I think Poppy, tries to take as much control over her life as she can. She's definitely really sheltered, but I just appreciated her attitude, I think. So I definitely just want to continue this series. The next book I'll talk about that comes out April 20th is Girl 11 by Amy Suter Clarke. So this is an adult thriller. We have Elle, who once trained as a social worker supporting young victims of violent crime, and now she hosts this popular true crime podcast that focuses on cold cases of missing and abducted children. After 4 seasons of successfully solving these cases in the Minnesota's Twin Cities, she decides to tackle her white whale, the Countdown Killer. 20 years ago, this serial killer was terrorizing the community, kidnapping and ritualistically murdering 3 girls over 7 days, each a year younger than the last. Then, after he took his 11-year-old victim, the pattern and the murders abruptly stopped, and no one really knows why. So she follows up on a listener tip, only to discover the man's dead body, and she feels at fault. Within a few days, a child is abducted, a young girl who seems to kind of like fit in this sequence that was halted decades ago. And, it's like media and law enforcement have concluded that this serial killer killed himself, but Elle has never believed that this killer was dead. She had hoped her investigation would lay this suspicion to rest, but instead her podcast seems to be inciting new victims. So that sounds really intense. I actually do have an arc of this through NetGalley, so I'm super excited to read this. I will definitely be reading it closer to publication date, but this just seems so intense. I do love a book that involves serial killer elements. I think that's just fascinating. And I really like that this has a true crime podcast element. I think that's also really interesting. And I don't know if we'll have any mixed media with the podcast at all. I'm definitely excited for it. The next book I'll talk about that comes out April 20th is The Galaxy and the Ground Within, which is the 4th book in the Wayfarer series by Becky Chambers. So this is an adult sci-fi. We've got this planet that's pretty unremarkable. Basically, the only thing it has going for it is it's this truck stop between worlds. At this 5-hop one-stop, long-haul speeders can stretch their legs, obviously if they have legs, and get fuel, transit permits, and supplies. And this is run by an enterprising alien and her sometimes helpful child, who work hard to provide a little piece of home to everyone passing through. But we've got this freak technological failure that halts all traffic to and from this planet. And so 3 strangers, all of different species with different aims, are thrown together at the 5-hop. They're grounded with nothing to do but wait. So this trio includes an exiled artist with an appointment to keep, a cargo runner at a personal crossroads, and a mysterious individual doing her best to help those on the fringes, or compelled to confront where they've been, where they might go, and what they are or could be to each other. So that just sounds really exciting. I actually did just win a Goodreads giveaway of an arc of this, so I'm hoping to read this also soon. But, I think this series in general has been such a cheerful, feel-good, slice-of-life sci-fi. It's definitely character-driven, and I've just really enjoyed all of them so far. This seems to be a new location that I certainly don't remember seeing or hearing about it before, so I'm curious to see how that goes, and I just really want to know about these 3 individuals on this planet and the connections between them. I think Becky Chambers does a really great job at writing, the bonds between all the characters, so I just really am looking forward to this. The next book I'll talk about that comes out April 20th is Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart. So this is a YA fantasy, and this is Jamaican inspired, so that's cool. One of them has spent her life in a cell, but every day brings her closer to freedom and vengeance. And then we've got the Queen's daughter, but unlike her sister before her, she has no intention of dying to strengthen her mother's power. So they're sworn enemies, and these 2 witches enter into a precarious alliance to take down a mutual threat. But power is intoxicating, revenge is a bloody pursuit, and nothing is certain except the lengths they will go to win this game. So that just sounds really cool. This sounds like a really fun fantasy. I like that our characters are enemies, but they're teaming up together. I think that'll provide some interesting banter and just relationships in general. And I'm very intrigued that this is Jamaican inspired. I don't think I've really read any books that are Jamaican inspired, so I think that this will be a nice change of pace just to see what happens here. And presumably we'll have some pretty cool magic systems. But this seems like a really nice, diverse fantasy, and I want to check it out for sure. The next book I'll talk about that comes out April 20th is These Feathered Flames by Alexander Overy. So this is also a YA fantasy, and this is a retelling of The Firebird, which is a Russian folktale. So we've got these twin heirs that are born in this place, and their fates are decided at a young age. So I guess one of them remained at court to learn the skills she'd need as a future queen, but the other was taken away to train with her aunt, who was the mysterious Firebird who ensured magic remained balanced in the realm. But I guess before her training is completed, the ancient power blooms inside her, which can only mean one thing. The queen is dead, and a new ruler must be crowned. As the princesses come to understand everything their roles entail, they'll discover who they can trust, who they can love, and who killed their mother. So that sounds really exciting. Just with any sort of, retelling, I'm a huge fan of that. I've only read a couple of books that involve the Firebird, so it's not something that I see as often, and I think that's pretty exciting. I'm assuming, since it's based on this Russian folktale, it may be set in like this cold environment, so I think that'll be pretty interesting. I'm curious about like what it means for magic to remain balanced in the realm. Like that has the potential, I think, to go wrong, so I'm curious about that. And you know, I definitely want to know like what happened to this queen and what will happen with our princesses. Like, will they be rivals? Will they stick together? I don't know. The next book I'll talk about that comes out April 20th is The Last Watch by J.S. Dews. So this is an adult sci-fi. And it's pitched as The Expanse meets Game of Thrones, so like that's already very appealing to me. But we've got the Divide, which is the edge of the universe, but now it's collapsing and taking everyone and everything with it. So the only ones who can stop it are the Sentinels, the recruits, exiles, and court-martialed dregs of the military. So at the Divide, Adequin Rake commands the Argus. She has no resources, no comms, nothing except for the soldiers that no one wanted. Her ace in the hole could be Cavallon Mercer, who's a genius asshole and exiled prince who nuked his grandfather's genetic facility for reasons. So she knows that they're humanity's last chance. So that just sounds like so exciting. You know, I'm a big fan of space operas and like military sci-fi, so I think this seems really appealing to me. I am definitely intrigued by the fact that we've got like the edge of the universe collapsing. Like that seems like it'll make things really tense and exciting. These like the dregs of the military, like I'm kind of curious to see if they will like bond together and have like a found family at all, or if they'll just be like a lot of infighting. I really don't know, but I am definitely excited for it. I think we'll have some politics, and I've already heard really positive things about it, so I'm definitely excited for this one. Okay, so now we'll move to April 27th, and the first book I'll talk about here is Fugitive Telemetry by Martha Wells. So this is the 6th installment of the Murderbot Diaries, which I've really loved. But this is an adult sci-fi series about Murderbot, which is like an AI that hacked its governor module so it doesn't have to obey orders anymore. Murderbot discovers a dead body on Preservation Station, and it knows it's going to have to assist station security to determine who the body was, how they were killed. This should be relatively straightforward at least, and why? Because apparently that matters to a lot of people. Who knew? So, the unthinkable is about to happen. Murderbot must voluntarily speak to humans again. So I'm really excited for this. I have really enjoyed Martha Wells' writing, and just like the Murderbot series is just like one of my favorites. It's so great. I think Murderbot is like a really appealing main character. Like it mostly like is kind of grumpy and wants to be left alone to like watch its media, but I think like over the course of the books it's kind of maybe reluctantly being drawn into like help with humans, and you know in some of the other books we've had it interact more with other like bots, and there's been like a really great variety of bots, and just I don't know, all these interactions have been wonderful. So I am so excited for this one. I cannot wait. The next book that comes out April 27th is Dial A for Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutanto. So I'm not really sure how to categorize this. It seems like it's a combination of an adult romance and a murder mystery. I guess one of our main characters ends up accidentally killing her blind date. So her meddlesome mother calls for her even more meddlesome aunties to help get rid of the body. Unfortunately, this kind of proves more challenging to dispose of than one might anticipate, especially when it's inadvertently shipped in a cake cooler to the over-the-top billionaire wedding Meddy, her ma, and aunties are working at on this island resort on the California coastline. It's his biggest job yet for the family wedding business, and nothing, not even an unsavory corpse, will get in the way of her auntie's perfect buttercream flowers. But things go from inconvenient to downright torturous when her great college love and biggest heartbreak makes a surprise appearance amid the wedding chaos. Is it possible to escape murder charges, charm her ex back into her life, and pull off a stunning wedding all in one weekend? So, like, that just sounds like such a fun combination of things. Like, it's like, what happens when you mix one accidental murder with 2,000 wedding guests and then toss in a possible curse on 3 generations of an immigrant Chinese-Indonesian family? You get 4 meddling Asian aunties coming to the rescue. So, I mean, that just sounds like so much fun. A rom-com murder mystery mashup, like, I didn't know I needed this, but I absolutely need this. And I love how bright the cover is also. Like, that seems, just everything about this is extremely appealing to me. Like, I think we're going to have a lot of hijinks, and, you know, I'm curious about, like, whether this romance will be successful. I'm curious if they will be able to successfully dispose of the body as well. But it seems like we're going to have a lot of really great family bonds. The next book I'll talk about that comes out April 27th is Star Wars Thrawn Ascendancy Greater Good. And this is by Timothy Zahn. So this is the second book in this Ascendancy trilogy. And basically, again, we're following Thrawn and the Chiss Ascendancy. Thrawn has led the Chiss to victory and brought glory to this house that he's been adopted in, but the true threat to the Ascendancy has not been extinguished. Their foes do not send threats or ultimatums, do not mass ships on the edge of the chaos. Their weapons come cloaked in smiles and generosity, gifts offered freely, services granted unconditionally. So there's like these seemingly inconsequential events that could herald the doom of the Chiss. As Thrawn and the expansionary defense fleet rally to uncover the plot, they discover a chilling truth that rather than invade Chiss capitals or pillage resources, their enemy strikes at the very foundation of the Ascendancy, seeking to widen the rifts between the 9 ruling families and the 40 great houses below. We've got rivalry and suspicion sowing discord among allies, and each warrior will have to decide what matters most to them, the security of their family or the survival of the Ascendancy itself. So I'm really excited for this. I've really enjoyed all the Star Wars books that Timothy Zahn has written. Thrawn is a really interesting character to follow. He looks at artwork of different alien races and can use, logic to deduct what kind of actions that they will do and how they'll behave. So he's been like super interesting to see. I definitely want to know more about the Chiss Ascendancy. It seems like we're going to have a lot of politics going on here. And yeah, like I'm a big fan of Star Wars, so I'm definitely going to be getting this one. The last book I'll talk about that comes out April 27th is Chaos on Catnet by Naomi Kritzer. So I actually read an arc of this back in, I think, like November or December, and I talked about it most recently in my favorite sci-fi books of 2020, so I'll try to remember to leave that linked down below. But this is the sequel to Catfishing on Catnet, and this is a YA sci-fi thriller. And basically here we've got this mysterious entity that starts hacking into social networks and chat rooms to instigate paranoia and violence in the real world. So our main character Steph and her new friend Nell have to try to figure out how to stop it with the help of their benevolent AI friend. So oh my god, this series is just so good, and like you should really pick it up because it is just fabulous. Like, not only do we have like a really fast-paced and engaging plot, but I think there's like, despite all these kind of bleak things, I think there's like this underlying thread of hope in it. It's just like effortlessly diverse, and we've got some like really fantastic characters, and of course the AI is just wonderful here. So I like definitely recommend this one. I wanted to mention it again because like, again, you should just pick it up because it's awesome. I mean, obviously read Catfishing on Catnet first, but it's a fantastic series that I highly recommend. So with that, those are all the books coming out in April that I'm very excited about. So let me know in the comments if you think you're going to pick up any of these books, or, for your question of the day, are there other books coming out in April that you are excited about? So I do have a Discord channel, and if you want to join that, the link is in the description below. I hope you're all having an excellent day and are reading something awesome. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, as that would certainly help me out. But with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up here and see you in the next one.